machine has a great selection of stitches to choose from, everything from essential stitches to stretch stitches for stretch fabric, and even decorative stitches for embellishment. So let's see how to select stitches on your machine. To select a stitch, you turn the stitch selector dial and you can feel it click in place as you turn the dial. When you find the stitch you want to sew, line it up with the dot marking that's on the main part of your machine. But when you look at the stitch dial, you can see that there are 3 different stitches on each click. There's a gray one, a blue one, and a red one. So how do you know which one you're going to sew? To demonstrate this, we're going to start with the gray one, the multi-step zigzag. If you come up to your stitch length dial, you'll notice that the numbers on the stitch length dial are also gray, just like the color of the stitch for the multi-step zigzag. The stitch length dial has numbers on it, and the smaller number is for shorter stitches and the larger number is for longer stitches. So we're going to try sewing the multi-step zigzag at about a stitch length of 1. And the other thing we want to do is increase our stitch width from 0, which is no width at all, up to number 5. Place your fabric underneath the presser foot, lower the presser foot, and step on the foot control to start sewing. To the end of your fabric, turn the hand wheel toward you until the needle is in its highest position and just begins to come down, and raise the presser foot and cut your thread. And there's your beautiful multi-step zigzag. This is a great stitch for embellishment, for elastic insertion, even seam finishing. Now let's try the stitch length at a much longer setting. I'm going to put it on number 4, which is a nice long setting. And let's see how differently the stitch will look when we sew it with a long stitch length. Turn the hand wheel toward you till the needle is all the way up and just begins to come down. Remove your fabric and trim your thread. And there's our multi-step zigzag, now with a much longer stitch length. You can see the various looks you can get from the same stitch just by adjusting your settings. Now, back to our stitch selector dial, let's look at how to sew the blue stitch, which is our honeycomb stitch. Stitch length dial until it's up here at the blue setting. S means stretch stitches. So blue lines up with blue. So let's try the honeycomb stitch. Make sure both your threads are under the presser foot and out to the back. Lower your presser foot lifter and step on the foot control to begin sewing. Fabric, turn the hand wheel toward you to raise the needle out of the fabric till it's all the way up and just begins to come down. Raise your presser foot lifter and cut your thread. And there's our honeycomb stitch. There's one more stitch on our stitch length dial on that same setting, which appears in red. This one is the feather stitch. And to achieve your red stitch, you're going to go back up to your stitch length dial one more time and turn the dial again until we see the red S. So red lines up with red. And here we can still leave that stitch width setting at 5. Those stitches look great at a width of 5. And let's see what that looks like. threads out to the back and underneath the presser foot. Place the fabric under the presser foot, lower the foot, and step on the foot control to begin sewing. Toward you till the needle's all the way up, just begins to come down. Lift the presser foot lifter and cut your thread. And there's your feather stitch. That's a beautiful stitch for stretch fabric as well as for decorative sewing. So just experiment with your stitches with different stitch length settings and different width settings for the look you want for the project that you want to sew. And if you'd like more information about adjusting stitches for your machine, check out your machine's manual, which is available online anytime.